I call Derek Ball.
Thank you. I believe that this is one of the most important debates that we've had in a while in this House, sir, because I don't believe that there's anything more important than ensuring that the safety of our most vulnerable children are up there as priority number one. What I'm going to do, sir, is actually go through a few of the numbers that fall out of the report, and what those numbers do is actually a cold, hard, sobering slap in the face about what's actually happening with the real people out there on the ground, sir. And also I've got a few articles here that will give a little bit of commentary on the issues that fall out of it, and most of those issues actually New Zealand First does have with this entire review. So I'd like to start off first, sir, with actually the front page of the Herald, and the first two words are quite apt, and it says, "Our shame." And if the Minister hasn't read this article, I'm sure that she has, she needs to only just read those two words in the title, and that's the position that we are taking. We should be ashamed of where we are. We should be ashamed of where we are right now, sir. And Mr. Bennett or Mr. Seymour might want to make a joke of this. He might want to giggle and laugh over there, but this is quite serious. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to Mr. Seymour 4 numbers, and we'll see if he's laughing after that. 117, that's the number of children who were abused last year in the care of SIFs. 60, the system is so stretched that children have had upwards of 20, 40, and in one case, over 60 care placements. Is that winning or is that failing, Mr. Seymour? 58, Maori make up a growing share of all children in care, up from 52% in 2010, sir, to 58% in 2013 and 14. And the last number here, sir, is 5,133. Children were in the state care last year. 1/3 of them are unhappy at not seeing their families. And what it says there, sir, is that it's a startling figure. Well, not according to the Minister. The Minister says this has been happening for quite a long time, and this is not news. The Minister said, sir, that it makes for pretty poor reading or pretty bad reading, grim reading. But this has been occurring for a while, and this is New Zealand First perspective. So this is the problem that we've got. That this has been happening for the entire time that the government has been in power, and has not reacted to any of the situations that have occurred throughout the entire 7 years. That's the basis of the questions that I had in the House today that the Minister could not answer. So what's happened, sir, so far? What I said was about the 14. Well, the Minister's mentioned the 14 reviews or actions or papers that the government has gone through, or successive governments. But actually, since 2010, there's been 10. Since 2011, there have been 10. Papers or reviews or actions that the government has taken or attempted to undertake to deal with SIFs. In 2011, there was a green paper on the vulnerable children, which was released. 2012, the Children's Commissioner announced the formation of the Expert Advisory Group. Again, in 2012, the green paper for vulnerable children submissions were released. We had an Expert Advisory Group on solutions and child poverty options. We had a white paper for the vulnerable children and Children's Action Plan, which was released. In 2012, again, we had the final report of the Children's Commission's Expert Advisory Group on Solutions for Child Poverty. Moving on to 2013, we had the government's response to the Children's Commissioner's Expert Advisory Group on Solutions to Child Poverty. 2014, we had the Children's Actions Plan, Children's Teams, Vulnerable Children's Act, and now we have an independent panel established to review the Child, Youth and Family Agency. Well, the question that we have, sir, is when is this going to stop? Now, let's get one thing straight. The Minister is talking about a complete overhaul of SIFs. But what this is, sir, is we are waiting until December for just the review, so then the Minister and the government can then have a look at the review and decide from there what's going to start happening. So on the Paul Henry show actually this morning, the Children's Commissioner was actually asked how many children will be abused between now and December, and it's around 50. So what the questions in the House from both Labour, from the Greens and from New Zealand First we're asking what is the minister going to do to help the children that are in care of SIFs right now, that the Children's Commissioner has highlighted that are the issues. And the minister refused to put any more investment in, to put any more money in, and to look at what the solutions are. We could talk about the budget, but the budget isn't working. The budget is not working. It has not worked. It has not worked over the last. It has not worked over the last 7 years. It has not worked over the last 7 years. Oh, I'm not confused, Mr. Seymour.
You're a little bit out of touch there, Mr. Seymour.
Sir, the white paper and the green paper in 2011-2012, like New Zealand First is saying, has been an absolute waste of time. In fact, it's been an absolute schmozzle. The Children Action Plan responds to the white paper and is based on nearly 10,000 submissions sent in on the green paper for vulnerable children. And not part of that, sir, is it was showing, this was back in 2011. This was back in 2011. Best practice showing keeping children safe from harm. That was back in 2011 and 2010. So what has happened? What has happened between 2010 and 2011 and now? Nothing's happened, sir. Of course, there needs to be an overhaul of SIFs. There needs to be a detailed review of what's happened. And needs to have a look at it, and we need to be putting investment into it. We need to prioritise things.
True.
Why hasn't it happened? Why hasn't it happened? This is the question that New Zealand First has. Why hasn't it happened? Why has it taken this long? Why hasn't it happened? Why has it taken this long? 7 years. The minister stood up in their house today during question time and said that she wants to put the vulnerable children at the heart of state care, making sure that the safety of these kids are priority. Well, why has it taken 7 years? That's the question that needs to be answered. That's the question that needs to be answered, sir. So one of the other things that has been mentioned also, sir, is the possibility of privatisation, and there's no doubt that that is absolutely an option on the minister's table at the moment, because I have asked the minister twice if she can absolutely guarantee ruling out privatisation of the social services sector and using companies like Serco, which she answered questions on and was quite positive about before the whole corrections debacle occurred. So that's one of the concerns from New Zealand First also, sir. I've also got a statement here from the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Social Development, and what this shows is a chronic underfunding of the social service sector. And this is just a manifestation of that underfunding, sir. So it states here, this is on the 27th of May 2014, and it states here, sir, that he said that, quote, "We've seen a 6-fold increase in notifications into SIFs in recent years. The pressure of this demand is considerable, and right now SIFs holds the lion's share of responsibility for what happens to these kids." Now, the reaction from the minister to that, from the Chief Executive, Brendan Boyle, was to come up with an idea called the children's teams. And I've asked the minister in the select committee, what extra funding will these children's teams have? And the answer is zero. And the minister said that there would be no extra work for the NGOs involved in these children's teams. So I actually went out and asked the NGOs themselves what they thought of the proposed children's teams. And the thing that they said to me was that the only thing that this was going to achieve was to have more loops to jump through, more hoops to jump through, and more bureaucracy. And that will act as limitation. It will act as limitation to what their job already is. It's not accounting for any more work that they could do, for example, with children. All it does is it shifts. And if it shifts, that means it leaves some children out, sir. I just want to finish with this, sir, is that reiterating what New Zealand First concerns are. This has been happening and occurring, and a problem and an issue for this country for years. And the government can't sit there, and the minister can't sit there and say, this is the saviour, this is the solution. we are doing a good thing for the country when it's taken 7 years for this government, who's been in power, to react, and it's taken too long, sir.